This is PTSD Triggers, What They Are and How to Deal, read by the author. It's been difficult for me to know where to begin writing about PTSD. There's a lot to unpack. As I think through various aspects of living with trauma, I easily become overwhelmed with emotions, something akin to my tearful trigger response. More about that at some point. Which reminds me that my partner has requested I address triggers. I think I can understand how she finds that to be of high importance. Triggers have caused tremendous damage to various areas of my life: my marriage, my job, certain friendships, family relationships, my health and overall well being, my finances, and even my outlook on life. She and I wish to limit damage to our wonderful relationship. So, this post will address the very basics of triggers and go into how to deal with them in ways that limit damage to oneself and to one's relationships. I will draw from my experience, education, and PTSD in the home training provided through the VA. First off, just because trauma has damaged my life, that doesn't mean I'm unhappy with my life or that I necessarily regret where life has led me. That damage has, in many cases, prompted me to make changes in my life that I recognize as healthy and which I find satisfying. For example, trigger response was directly involved in my departure from my last job. It was a lucrative job. I had very little financial concern. I had ample leisure time. I was excellent at my work when I was functioning at my best. Triggers contributed to a decline in my performance in certain ways, especially focus, and a couple of standout events put me in an unendurable relationship with management. All that said, I did not love my job. I supported a large government organization that is involved in some things with which I don't agree. I helped keep the organization's computers safe, and I seldom found that satisfying. I knew for a couple of years at least that I wanted to leave, yet never did. Golden handcuffs. Triggers in that workplace provided the shove out the door that I evidently needed. I am now a graduate student in chiropractic college. It is very challenging, 14 11-week quarters that result in 13 to 15 final exams per quarter. It is very stressful. I've had two fairly high grade triggers there, being now in the third quarter, but I feel inspired. Upon licensure, I will be able to directly benefit people, hopefully each time I meet them. I chose this path because I value helping people directly over protecting their computers. There are other examples of how PTSD has greatly contributed to the end of a period or aspect of my life, yet where I am now in a place more true to myself. It's like trauma response has stripped parts of my life from me, forcing me to reform. I get the chance to reform in ways that I currently find resonant, and I value that. So, on to some basics of triggers and how to deal with them. From my perspective, triggers are events that stimulate a trauma-based response. Sometimes a mild response, sometimes very intense, show-stopping. The response is mental, emotional, and physical, total. Cloudy thinking, a whole range of negative emotions are possible results. Anger, sadness, grief, frustration, hopelessness. These are only several examples. Triggers do not have to come in the exact form of one's initial trauma. Triggers can map onto similar stimuli and spread to more and more types of events. An example of an intense trigger for me is a startling event. Not all startling events, oh no. Mild triggers might not cause a reaction in me when my overall sense of well-being is high, but even mild triggers can cause a response if well-being is low, such as when I haven't recovered from the last trigger. I've experienced some startling, frightening things, very specific military events, and now I can have a traumatic reaction when I accidentally topple a glass of water. I have two main trigger responses. Let's call them anger and tears. My anger response might be best described as a fight, flight, or freeze response. I'm not sure I do much freezing, but perhaps with more insights I'll discover I do. My heart pounds, my respiration dramatically increases. I can get angry, but not always. I think a lot of emotions get labeled as anger, though they aren't really. impassioned, vehement, upset, disturbed, ashamed, disappointed. A lot of different feelings can flood through my brain instantly in the wake of certain triggers at certain times. For more about PTSD and my diagnosis, I'll refer you to another video uploaded here that I shot several years ago, actually. It's called So I Have PTSD. I'll move on now to dealing with triggers. I've already mentioned that triggers are more likely to evoke an elevated reaction, an unusual problematic reaction, when I have not yet recovered from the last. I went through a time period where I was triggered for around a month or two straight, mainly severe ones for a while too. It was a dark time. Much damage was inflicted on many aspects of my life during that spell. Though it stands out as the worst one, there were other spells that also did their damage. Understanding that an individual with PTSD is more prone to being triggered when they haven't yet returned to a low enough baseline can help, both in looking out for oneself, but also for others wishing or needing to offer support, keep peace at home, in the workplace, and so on. I check in fairly frequently about this with my partner. I call this condition trigger hangover. I don't drink anymore, but I did. I'm not a total stranger to hangovers. Time in the wake of a severe trigger can feel like a bad one in many ways. Degradation of mood, of motivation, of energy, of cognitive processes. In my first quarter of chiropractic school, I had to take an important exam shortly after I was triggered. It was a struggle beyond the usual ones that come with exams. How can this knowledge help? Providing motivation for check-ins is one way. Knowing that I'm more susceptible to triggers helps me and those around me to adapt in certain ways. I can try to avoid certain situations that might produce likely triggers. I can increase relaxing activities like meditation and breathing practices. Those around me and I can try exercising more patience and understanding when another trigger occurs, especially when it seems like some unusually trifling thing was the cause. It might be best to postpone important discussions until some time has passed with no triggered reactions. At least a day, for me, maybe a few. I think I'm on day 22 of triggers as I write this. I only know that number because my partner and I have been checking in, and a number comes up occasionally. They've been very mellow for a while now, hopefully a sign that the spell will break soon if a severe enough trigger doesn't set my progress back. On the topic of check-ins, and this could be different for others with PTSD, but for me, it is always okay for my partner or others around me to ask if I've been activated or not. For my part, I have committed to telling my partner when I've been triggered in the instances where she doesn't already clearly know, such as if she weren't there when it happened. This was a recent commitment made after determining that coming to her and saying anything else before she knows can lead to some very unfortunate exchanges. Hey, love, I just want to tell you that I'm activated right now. I'm happy to fill you in when we have a few moments. For now, I just wanted you to know. Now, I'm often triggered by things that have nothing to do with my partner. Those instances are easier to explain even when activated. If my partner is involved in the trigger, no matter how inadvertently, that is trickier. It's best to engage that conversation when she's ready, knowing a trigger occurred, than to blindside her with statements that are highly likely to be misconstrued, mainly due to a mangled delivery. Things can be said that one does not truly believe or hold as an ideal. The underlying topic is at issue, but the details can come out inaccurately, exaggeratedly, disjointedly, even contradictorily. Unfortunate discussions can occur even with safety rails in place. In those times, I've learned that if someone needs to leave the discussion, it is imperative to let them go, either to suspend the talk while staying nearby or even getting some physical space, such as going on a walk. When this happens, I find it best if both individuals can agree on a time to try to talk again. That way, nobody is seizing control by ending a conversation because it is only paused, or by indefinitely suspending it either, which can cause anxiety for the other. Can we try to resume in an hour? Ways that I try to regulate include briefly crawling into bed, the weight of the blankets, the isolation and peace of the bedroom space. I put an audiobook or music on my AirPods, just to shut out other sounds and get my mind off of current thoughts for a while. A hug can help, but sometimes not right away. Sometimes I need to recover from sensory overload. This period is usually very brief for me, and then I usually badly want that hug. From certain people, anyway. Certain kinds of touch bring comfort, relaxation, and assurance to me. I'm here. I care. I wish to help soothe you if I can. These messages are relayed to me through touch. There's also a physical calming, like prime nerves quickly releasing. Not everyone wants touch when they're activated. It's best to act with clarity. Support individuals can ask, and affected individuals can divulge, assuming they aren't triggered so badly right then that they're temporarily unable. A walk often helps. Doing something on my to-do list can help. Listening to a favorite album, an immersive mix preferred, can very often help. Other factors important to trigger mitigation include abstinence from drinking, in my case, maybe moderation for others, but no expert I've consulted has suggested that any amount of alcohol does PTSD treatment any favors. Commitment to therapy of many possible varieties, and proper medication, which could be zero, but that's totally up to you and your medical support. For me, certain medications have helped tremendously. I think this might be a good point at which to wrap for now. I realize I have focused on my anger trigger reactions and not on my tearful ones. I think this is because anger responses are more troubling to my partner, though I might get some mind-changing feedback on that soon. In any case, the tearful response is also on my roadmap for discussion. I hope this post has been helpful. I invite any dialogue, questions, observations, differing experiences, or opinions. The Substack is part of a community of mutual support. Until next time, thank you. So I hope you have benefited from this reading. This is a reading of my original Substack post. I intend to do this sort of thing on an ongoing basis, to write an article and then to read it on video and then to supply also an audio option. So I appreciate if you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, leave comments, share these videos, podcast, do your thing. I'm not even sure how podcasts work yet, so we'll see. And for Substack, I just appreciate all of the support, and mostly I hope that helpful dialogue and information gets to supportive people and to affected people, because PTSD is not something I would ever wish to endure alone. So thanks. Till next time.